Many scientists and philosophers determine prehistory as anything prior to written history. To accept this Western thought would not be valid to the cultures of indigenous people. The Nez Perce connection to our ancestors is great. Our history has been found evident for thousands of years. It has been recorded through oral stories, song, and ceremonies. It has been passed on generation after generation. We were created by our legend creature, Coyote. Coyote created us as the new creatures. Our legend tells us that the land and animals were here long before us. We have been taught that we belong to the land. The land does not belong to us. This land unites us with our ancestors across time, keeping our culture alive. It provides food and water, shelter and beauty, and above all, a sense of place. We fish in rivers our grandfathers fished in long before the arrival of Columbus. We dig roots in meadows our grandmothers dug before the rise of the Roman Empire. We live in the place our ancestors called home before the great pyramids of Egypt were built. The land defines the Nez Perce way.
The land is our provider. The land gives us our livelihood in many ways. So just sit down and think about it. Sit down and sometime and just start writing what the world and Mother Earth does for us. You come up with a pretty long list of things. I've done that. And it's one of the things that I think is so important is how we describe water and what it means to the people and everything that goes, and how the Creator gives us water to irrigate and fertilize all these different plants and things, and how nature works, how the nature gives us a lot of things not from just the earth, it's from the sky and from the clouds and also from the wind and everything that's connected to nature.
Our original homeland covers a vast area in what is now north-central Idaho, southeastern Washington, and northeastern Oregon. Although our reservation was reduced to its present size of approximately 750,000 acres by the Treaty of 1863, the Indian Claims Commission boundary is the territory in which Nez Perce treaty rights may be exercised exclusively. These treaty rights are the basis for the Nez Perce Tribe's involvement at Hanford. As late as the 1940s, land comprising the Hanford Nuclear Reservation was occupied and used by Indian tribes. During the 1940s, Hanford was activated for making nuclear fuel and weapons. All of the natural resources in the area were contaminated. During the Cold War, Weapons were still being made at Hanford until the late 1980s, when DOE turned toward the long-term cleanup efforts to restore the land, wildlife, and water to their previous condition. The waste and past cleanup efforts have inadvertently disturbed burial sites, destroyed natural vegetation, and important native cultural resources. DOE now works with the Nez Perce Tribe to ensure tribal interests and rights are protected.
Dating back to when Congress passed the Nuclear Waste Policy Act, that the tribe was designated as an affected tribe, and I guess there are probably many aspects of that as far as the impacts, as far as fisheries that pass through the Hanford Reach area, other natural resources that are impacted by the Hanford area.
Why the Nez Perce are involved now? That question was asked before, and to me in that one meeting, I said, "Why are the Nez Perce involved? You know, that's Yakima land, or that's Yakima territory over there, ceded area." And if you look at it, I mean, that's according to what they call treaties. Because I was talking before, treaty was where the lines were drawn. Collective use of that place. Now the treaties were involved and like that, so it broke lines up. But Nez Perce have ceded areas, plus we also got our preservation rights. I call it three rings. Right now is our 1863 boundary where we have ceded area goes out past that. It's your second ring, and your off-reservation rights is your silo. That's quite a ways away, and that's your off-reservation rights. Usual and custom, UNA, and we call it usual and custom areas. And that's also reservations. We got it in Montana and even California.
Like our ancestors before us, we continue to hold very strong cultural, spiritual, and natural ties to the land in the Hanford area. The land has long been utilized as a rendezvous point by Plateau tribes.
As we all know from tribal history, that the tribal people were very nomadic and that they roamed from area to area gathering food throughout the year, and I think the Aboriginal usage of the Columbia River was that, in fact, to harvest fisheries, to harvest fish, and then to dry them, and then to move back and gather in a certain area where other people who had been harvesting fish meet, and other people who harvest berries meet, and roots, and hunters, they all meet, and then they trade. They do trading, and so that all of the people could benefit from all of the resources that they had.
The rendezvous site before treaty time was when the tribes would go over there and just visit, have fun, and do games, and it was a trading place almost like on that plateau over there.
Much of the land was held as sacred, specifically Gable Mountain.
Yeah, there's a lot of good land down there where it was a spirituality gathering place, from what I understand. And there's also what we call a spiritual mountain or peak close by.
Gable Mountain was a vision quest area. That was kind of a collective point where all the tribes could go there. Our ancestors said that we went over there too and used that site.
Although recognized as sacred, access to these sites has not always been easy.
They had rifle security there. You couldn't get past points without going through a search, and they had I'm a veteran and I've seen these guys. It's all checkpoint Charlie type stuff. They had their things over there when I first went over there. So, and that was their issue at that time. They said that we were pushing for cultural access to Hanford. Says we have a right to go there. Yeah. A cultural religious freedom type stuff. And some elders went over there, and they were denied access. So you have to get a badge. You got to get this and that. You got to do this and that. Because I don't see any fences or barriers going up around a church where you can walk in a church. Anybody can walk any time of the day. You can walk in. But this is a church to a lot of these elders. That's the same context.
In the 1940s, the major production of the Hanford Nuclear Reservation swelled the population from the previous 125 residents to 51,000. Many of our people still utilize this area for gathering foods, while others participated in the largest civilian construction camp in the United States.
When I was a young girl, my mother we had an old Dodge truck. I think it was a Dodge. And this is way back in the 30s and the early 40s. My mother used to drive people in a truck, and they would go camping at different sites to do different type of seasonal work. My mother was the chauffeur that chauffeured all the Indians around, and we'd have like probably about 10 families that would go on the truck with all of us little kids in there.
I was little when I was down there, and then as a youngster, and with my mother and father and grandmother, we were down there every year. It was a seasonal activity that the Indian people went every year. There are many people in Nimiipuu that's what they did. That was what we earned our money from, and where we went for the summer. In between root digging and going hunting and fishing, our other time was down there, in that area, picking berries, raspberries, strawberries, plums.
In the people, we lived off of the land. We still live off of the land. We live off the animals that feed off of the land and drink the water. And if they get contaminated, then we eat them and we get contaminated. That's the way I feel.
I'm sure that when they had some kind of surge of any kind of dangerous things, that what happened to the air may have, gotten to us in some way. What about all the people that it's damaged, and the animals and the land itself, It's really, it's too bad that it had to happen. It's too bad that had to be the place that had to be destroyed because of the nuclear substance that they have there.
Time will tell on the impacts it has on tribal membership. I think the downwind effects, that as far as tribal members are concerned, as far as gathering roots especially, I think how the effects of the downwind impact those particular plants is important.